So I was taught that strawberries are heart medicine. And this is why. There was once a man and a woman that lived together in a forest, and they lived in a small log cabin. Every day the man would go out and he would set traps and he would hunt and he would bring food back, and that would be enough. Every day the woman, she would go out and she would gather berries and flowers and she would forage for whatever she could find, and she would bring that back, and that was enough. And together they always had enough food to get them through the night. Well, the day that our story begins was a beautiful spring morning, and the woman set out to forage as she usually does, and she became distracted. You see, the new blooms were out. Some blooms she had never seen before. It's bright oranges and pinks and yellows, and she began to pick bundles and bundles of flowers, and so much time had gone by, and her arms were so full, she barely noticed that the sun had traveled across the sky and was beginning to set. And then when she did notice that the sun was setting and she looked at her arms and realized she had nothing for dinner, she thought not to worry. My husband will have something. It'll be all right. So she headed home along the path, and when she got to the front door and she opened it, flowers and arms, she eventually put everything down. She spotted her husband, but her husband was sitting by the fire with his ankle up on a stool. You see, he'd gone out that day to set a trap, but when he'd done that, he'd twisted his ankle, so he hadn't been able to catch anything. Well, as these things sometimes happen, the husband and wife began to exchange a couple words, and those words became a little heated, and then finally the husband said something that he couldn't take back. That moment, the woman stomped through the front door, slamming it shut, and down along the path. She was marching and marching and marching very quickly, and the man, he immediately felt guilt for what he had said, and so he tried to rush after her, but you remember, he had twisted his ankle, so he wasn't getting very far. Along the path they were going, and this path in particular went up and over a small hill, and the moon was really bright that night. It was high up in the sky, and so he could see his wife. She was stomping furiously ahead, but she was gaining a lot of distance because he wasn't able to move very fast. And so eventually he dropped to his right knee and he looked up to the sky and he said, "Creator, please, I know that you're a busy guy, but if you happen to be listening, could you do something to slow my wife down? She's all the way up the path, and I said something I shouldn't have said, and if she gets too much further, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to bring her back. I don't think she's going to come home. Could you please do something to slow her down?" And so Creator happened to be listening, and she decided to place a patch of raspberries on the right side of the path. But when you're really angry and your arms are swinging and you're marching forward, generally your gaze is facing the ground. And so she was so mad and she had so much speed, she stomped right by those raspberry bushes. She didn't even see them. Well, the man quickly stood up and continued to try to hobble forward, but again, this time dropped to his left knee and said, "Critter, please, I really appreciated that, but it wasn't enough to slow her down. Could you please try something else?" So this time, Creator, he put a bush of blueberries along the left side of the path. Wow. She was still really angry and she didn't see that, arms swinging past that, and at this point, she was almost up at the top of the hill. The man dropped to both knees and said, "Creator, please, I know you've tried. Please try one more time. If she gets over that hill, she's not coming back." So this time, Creator placed a patch of strawberries across the path. Well, even in anger, even stomping your way up a path, you're going to see something like a patch of strawberries. It's right down there in front of you. And so the woman, as she spotted the strawberries, began to slow down. You see, she hadn't seen strawberries before. She gently dropped to her knees and began to rustle around, and she found one bright red and juicy strawberry, and she brought it up to her nose and she began to smell that it was sweet. And then she brought it to her lips and she took a bite. Well, if you've ever taken a bite out of a strawberry, cut it vertically down, you'll see that it looks like a heart. And so she pulled it away from her mouth and she looked at it. At that moment, she remembered her husband and she looked back down the path. And there he was, hobbling up to see her. Well, they still live in the forest, that husband and wife. But they've agreed now that when they fight, one of them will go out and get strawberries. Oh, my relations, now that's your story to share.